Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, good. I think I'm starting to figure this Zoom thing out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Last time, the last couple of times I couldn't do it right, but anyway, um, I just want to touch on a few things.
Yeah.
Suicide is still very much discussed, and I know
Mhm.
we see the lowest rate of suicides in the fall/winter months.
Mhm.
And I meant to bring this up last time, but the Green Ranger, Jason David Frank. Um,
I don't know who that is.
no,
I don't think so.
you never watched. Well, I don't know if you really grew up in the '90s, but there was a show called Power Rangers.
Oh, yeah. I know Power Rangers. Okay. I
Yeah.
just out of context, I was like, I don't know what we're talking about. So I hear you. I got you.
So Jason David Frank, who played the Green Ranger, and he played the White Ranger as well. I don't know
Mhm.
if you know this, but he actually ended his own life by suicide. Um, he and his wife were going through a divorce, and they were checked into a hotel, stayed in separate hotel rooms. They were going to try to work. They were going to try to work it out, but oh, his wife went on. His wife checked on him, knocked on the door. He didn't come home to the door. Believe the wife called hotel staff or the cops, to the best of my knowledge, and he was gone. So, have you heard about Twitch?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I have. I've been told several times I look like a Twitch. Okay.
As soon as you said his name, I was like, I can see that actually. So you're not wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, but but you know, you just never know what somebody is going through. I don't think we really knew what was going on with. I don't think we would truly ever know what was really going on with Twitch. I know they said he had lost some money. He had lost some money in like Bitcoin or something. But
Mhm.
Jason David Frank going through a breakup. Um, I guess you can say they were going to have a reconciliation, but I guess things went different. Things went sideways, and so um, what do you think about those two individuals like Jason David Frank and Twitch?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know much about them other than just who they are and, their profession. I think when I saw a lot of people like posting things about them, and it's always very interesting to me. And this is not like necessarily a wrong thing for people to do at all. But it's always really interesting to me, like after a celebrity, or someone of a certain like, you know, popularity of some kind has passed away, like how many people just very quickly respond and how they very quickly start posting about suicide awareness and how to reach out for support, and like all of these things start coming out, and that lasts for a moment, and then that moment passes. And
Mhm,
so I think it's really interesting, that people tend to talk about it after the fact
mhm.
and tend to bring up the conversation more like once the tragedy has already happened of that kind of loss, and not necessarily like,
Keep
you
it
know,
going.
Yeah, like posting things on social media,
Be going, yeah.
those things having happened,
Mhm.
and just like being aware of it, or trying to like open those conversations or let people know that maybe they're aware of what that can mean and that they're a safe person to come to or a supportive person. And
Mhm.
um, I think that's what I noticed the most, like not necessarily about those individuals themselves, but I noticed the response that people have, and it doesn't last long. It usually fades pretty quickly, and I think people just tend to jump on it afterward and not while something might be happening. And I'm not saying this in particular to those two men. Like I have no idea what was going on in their life, if these things had been communicated, how people responded, who knows? I don't. Um, but I see it more from like the societal standpoint of like how are these things being shown,
Mhm.
or how are they being talked about before, something kind of comes up.
Yeah, you brought up the point that it faded very quick. I know
Mhm.
for several days in a row, it was being talked about. It was being
Mhm.
talked about. Everybody was saying check on your friends, even your strong ones. Continually
Mhm.
check on them. Then within about a few days, it slowly died down. It slowly died down. So I think that's
Mhm.
the reason why we have to keep the conversation going, having
Yeah.
conversations like these. I went to a safe talk training today, and one of the things that they taught that we learned is you don't just have to listen with two ears. You have to listen with the invisible third ear. And what they mean by
Mhm.
the invisible third ear is something that sounds unusual when you're listening to them. Something that sounds
Mhm.
unusual when you're listening to them. Say like if you're at a coffee shop and um, you're with a friend who's been isolating, hasn't been hanging out, and the friend says, "I've been doing this, and this, but no, it's all going to be over soon." No, that's what they mean when they say the third ear. No, you have to
Mhm.
listen for like stuff that how to actually give hints,
Yeah.
to suicide. Do you know Justin Johnson?
I've met him before. We've talked at a couple of different events, but I don't know him too well outside of that, out of just meeting each other and connecting.
Yeah, he was actually one of the ones that was leading the training today. So, it's like males make up nearly 80% of suicides. Okay, males make up nearly 80% of suicides,
Mhm.
and I know they're the lowest in the fall winter months, but when the weather gets warmer in March, they really spike. They
Mhm.
really spike in the springtime and summertime. And April is the highest rate. You see the highest rate of suicide. I don't think I mentioned this the last time we talked. That I mentioned that I had a situation that was from August, like late August, early September, all the way up to early November. I don't think I told you about all that, did I?
I don't think so. It doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, so what had happened was this. I met somebody on I met somebody on Instagram, which should have been in a sign in the first place. But I met somebody on Instagram. She claimed to be a follower of Jesus. Um, but what she actually did was she actually ended up scamming me out of the houses of dollars. Okay,
Oh,
believe it or
wow.
not, believe it or not, yeah. she ended up scamming me out of thousands of dollars. So even even while I was at the walk, at the even while I was at the walk, she was still, you know, banging on me like every 5 minutes for or something. Every 5 minutes or something.
Mhm.
Um, it got to the point where I just had to ignore her for a little for a little while. But I talked to some family, talked to some friends, and they agreed unanimously that I was being played, I was being scammed. So I ended up cutting her off. She got she got desperate. She got upset. She resorted to some things, and and it didn't work. She tried threats. That didn't work, believe it or not. And the fallout from that was massive. Okay. First of all, while I was dealing with her, um, since I got scammed, I had to change everything.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the biggest from the fallout was I was actually off my meds for most of November and most of December as well. So as a result, my mood just went into the toilet.
Mhm.
My mood just went into the toilet for like a whole month. Um, so um, I got back on my meds, but I got back on my meds in late December. But I also can't deny that I was feeling anger and I was feeling thoughts of suicide, anger towards her, anger towards myself because I did not see because I was too blind to see the signs.
Mhm.
And that was a moment where um, suicide became a possibility. I didn't go through with it, but it was something that was on my mind. Tell me about certain life situations um, that that you have dealt with, you have heard, you have dealt with.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, well, one, before I even share anything, I'm just so sorry to hear that you went through that. Like, oh my gosh. And I'm so glad that you're like doing better right now. And sounds like you're kind of moving in the direction that you want to be moving in, from that fallout happening.
Yeah.
Because that sounds really intense. So I'm just glad that you're here and you're feeling safe and,
She
all
still
of that.
contacts me though. She
Yeah.
still contacts me though.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right to
You
not
won't know.
contact back. And there's only, and just, cut that off as best you can. And I mean, yeah, especially thinking of like triggers for people and like when they experience, suicidal thoughts or, start to take steps in toward action. Finances is a one I hear about all the time. Um, Financial, troubles happening for a lot of people. Work is a big factor for a lot of people who feel like maybe they're stuck, which kind of leans into the financial piece of things. Those are two of the biggest. I would say, relationships can be a factor as well. Just thinking of, if those are a primary piece of support for someone and then they
Yes.
lose a relationship, then that can definitely, trigger those responses to start happening. I would say those are probably like the main three events
Mhm.
that kind of occur for people. On the outside, of course, there's so much going on internally, related to that too. But financial struggles, I hear very often, work, I hear very often, relationships, very often, from the outside of like what happens from those things. And yeah, the majority of the people I talk to who experience those things more frequently than anyone else are usually the men that I speak with, who just kind of feel like the weight of those things a little bit more. And again, kind of speaking to that like societal pressure in a way too.
Speaking of triggers, I was reading a article. Well, I was reading something. Can't remember. Maybe it been on Instagram or something, but I was reading and I can't remember what it was about, but it was something pertaining to suicide. And I was reading it, and all of a sudden, I felt an uneasy feeling go through my chest. I'm like, oh, I gotta stop. Trigger. I'm hitting a trigger.
Yeah.
So that uneasy feeling, I was like, oh, I'm starting to get hit trigger. I got to stop. I got
Mhm.
to stop. So in that moment, I was getting triggered. I usually don't get hit triggered, but sometimes, sometimes it can rear its ugly head every now, now, every now and then.
Mhm.
Uh, what about reaching out? That's something that we need to discuss at say Eighth Talk. It's not easy for people to reach out. Um, I was having a conversation with a friend just last week. Um, she was encouraging me. If you ever feel like that, um, don't hesitate. Do not hesitate. Do not hesitate to reach out. And I think she kind of put a little emphasis on it by saying, "No, no, no. I'm being dead serious.
Mhm.
It's like I'm being dead serious. If you ever feel like that, come to me.
Yeah.
You know, um, what are some of the real for those of you who may not know for those who may not know the reasons, some of the reasons why people don't reach out, stigma, um, they've already made the decision, um, and it's just so hard to reach out.
Yeah.
Um, what are some of the reasons you would say why it's hard to reach out?
Yeah, I definitely think you're right about those. And the other main ones that come to my mind are one, I mean, shame, right? Like there's something wrong with me, no one's gonna understand this. There's something wrong with me. I'm a bad person for thinking this, just like the voice of shame that comes through for a lot of people, or guilt,
Mm,
tied with that too. Like, what am I doing wrong? What have I done wrong to feel this way? Just kind of putting that shame, guilt, blame on themselves. And that's a really like lonely place to be. And it usually keeps people from reaching out. I would also say, and we kind of talked about this a little bit last time, but in a different way. Um, I mean, so many of the people, and of course, my lens is through mental health counseling, so it's a little bit different than than maybe other people. But a lot of the people I talk to, like if they're having suicidal thoughts, it's usually not the first time. Like it's usually something that they've been dealing with for a very long time. For some people, the thoughts might be obsessive. For some people, the thoughts might be chronic. It really kind of depends. Some are situational, but more often than not, it's a very like consistent, continuous thought process that sits with them for a really long time for multiple reasons. Um, and I think for a lot of people, if that's something that they've been dealing with for a long time, sometimes it feels like it's not that big of a deal that they're still having those thoughts. And that is a difficult thing. And there is kind of like an intensity level, to what people experience. But I also think because if they've been having them for a while, they've probably reached out before and they might have been met with, you know, invalidation of what they were going through. They might have been met with judgment. They might have been met with like problem solving. Well, let's just fix that sort of thing. Um, they might have been met with someone who like wanted to try support them but didn't know how, and like did what they could. Um, and again, if these thoughts are like consistent, then they might be going to the same person more than once, or they're safe people more than once, if they have any of those. And at some point, I think a lot of people get tired of reaching out to people because they don't want to feel like a burden. I mean, that's one of the biggest things. They don't want to feel like a burden to their loved ones.
Mm.
And so it's kind of just easier not to. And then I think that's when it starts to lead to the spiral a little bit more.
While you were talking, something just two things just in here too in my mind. One will be moves. I'll get to that in a second, but one of the things we talked about that the safe talk training was Kevin Hines, okay? The guy who jumped from the Golden Gate Bridge and survived.
Mm.
So Kevin Hines was on the bus to the Golden Gate Bridge, okay? Close to the Golden Gate Bridge. And he was like crying uncontrollably, just hoping someone would notice. Someone would notice. And he was sobbing, crying uncontrollably. And I believe the bus driver said, "Get off the bus, kid. I have a route to run." So he got off of the bus, still crying. Nobody noticed. Jumped off the bridge. He did his survive. I have read his book. It's pretty good. And number two, moods. Dramatic dramatic mood swings. Do you know what would be the most dangerous sign? The most dangerous sign of all, the most dangerous sign that somebody may go through with it. Do you know what the most dangerous sign is?
I feel like there's a right answer that you're looking for.
No,
and
no,
I
no.
and I'm not, I think
That's
that,
okay. That's
yeah.
okay if you don't. Oh no. No. That's okay if you don't. Oh no. If you don't. Oh no. That's okay. The answer would be, like you said, when they're reaching out and they're tired of reaching out
Mhm.
and they're sad and they're still trying to reach out, then all of a sudden they turn happy.
Mm.
Yeah, I would say that's the most dangerous sign of all. That is the most dangerous sign of all, because they may be here at peace, and that means that they're actually gonna go through with it. Have you ever dealt with situations like that, or you haven't?
I have, trying not to disclose anything
Yeah.
about this person, someone I worked with in a work setting.
Person
Um,
X, person
yeah,
X.
yeah, person X. And she was someone that comes to mind because I saw her on a day when she was actually like discharging from care from a program. And she was doing well that day. And like there were no warning signs were coming up, like had been doing well that week, no concerns. I mean, we were letting her discharge. So we thought, okay, she's in a good place, like she's stable, she's, ready to move forward. And then the next day we got a call that she had, attempted to end her life the night before, the same day that she was discharged from the program. Luckily, she survived. And after that, she kind of had this new lease on life, and really wanted to take advantage of that and kind of turned the leaf for herself, which was really amazing to see her do. But it was definitely a surprise and a shock when we got that call the next day, because we had not noticed anything that would have made us think that she was planning on doing that night. Um, so that was my first experience with really seeing something and being a part of an experience like that, firsthand with someone. And it was really hard to sit with.
It sounds like you're kind of a little bit emotional.
Oh yeah. I mean, she was
Yeah.
someone that I worked with a lot, at where I was. And to hear, that she was in that place and didn't want to tell anyone was really hard to kind of process as being a person that she talked to a lot while she was working with us where I was.
So so I've been very open about the fact that I've attempted um did I don't think I mentioned my attempt last time, did I?
You did. We talked about it.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay. Um um did I mention the blade? I think I mentioned the a blade.
I think so.
Okay,
That sounds
okay,
familiar.
okay. So those kind of so those kind of stories are the reason why that um are the reason why that I discuss it so openly because it seems like it's talked about regularly, but it's still not, like you said. You use the example of Twitch
Mhm.
discussing for about 4 or 5 days, and it simply goes away. Um, as I said, I've been very open about the fact that I've attempted, um, and I was having his discussion with a member of AFSP.
Mhm.
Um, we discussed, um, and I asked her his question. I said, I asked her, no matter how an attempt goes, and an attempt is a attempt. I have my her response to that, but I want to know your her response to that. Is a attempt, even if it's like really futile?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember you asking me that, I think when we talked before
Okay.
too.
Okay.
Like, I I think it doesn't matter the intensity of the action someone takes, but it's what's the intent behind the action. Like that's what matters.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I think across the board that's the part to pay attention to.
Because I'm not going to get into me. I'm not going to get into methods. I'm not going to trick. I'm not going to get into methods. But when when I kept a blade in my bag, um, I took that I took I took the blade out, and I almost went through. I almost went hit through with it. But instead, I texted a friend. I said texted a friend, and they said throw the blade away. I want proof. Threw the blade away. Took a video of it. Haven't seen it again.
Mhm.
And and what do you think about self harm? Because
Mhm.
self harm would be is not considered. I don't think self harm is considered like a warning sign, but it can be. But if you harm yourself in the wrong spot, then it can lead to an
Mhm.
accidental su- accidental suicide. For me, I did self harm, and this kind of took me years to overcome. Um, I don't think I told you I kept a knife under my bed. Yeah, I used to keep a knife under my bed. Kept a knife on under my bed, and I remember vividly years ago. This was back in 2010, 2011. I was having an argument with my girlfriend, and I reached under the bed, pulled it out, So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And I tell people, I can still see this. Hold on, let me move this thing out. Okay, there we go. And I tell people to this day, the scars have faded. I pretty much faded, but every time I look at them, I can still see them very clearly. I can still
Mhm.
see them very clearly. Um, so one of the things about suicide is we talked about moods. We talked about well, my mind is kind of gone.
Okay.
We talked about moods, warning signs.
Triggers, some warning signs.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And so one of the things they were teaching us at Safe Talk was, the more you study it, the more you look at it, um, um, the better you get. I know you're, I know you're a counselor.
Mhm.
I work on the crisis line. How
Mhm.
important do you think is what they call empathetic? Um, empathetic, if I said that word right, empathetic listening.
Yeah. I think you're saying it right. I'm like, I'm trying to think of the different way to say it. And yeah, empathetic. That's what it is.
There
A
we
little
go.
bit of a different emphasis. Yeah. I was like, it sounds right, but I don't know.
There we go.
Empathetic understanding, I think is the term you're looking
Yeah.
for. Yeah.
Yeah. So how weird. So how important do you think um is how important do you think that is?
I mean, I think it's one of like the key pieces to be able to talk to someone and that makes you like a safe person. And just to like kind of differentiate between empathy and sympathy, like Brene Brown, if you're familiar with her, she's a doctor of social work who studies shame and vulnerability, and she has this great little video that like tells the difference between tells the difference between empathy and sympathy. And empathy is like crawling down with someone in their dark hole, their dark space, and just saying like, hey, I don't know what to say right now, but I'm here with you and like I'm listening and I'm here to it's trying to tap into like your humanity,
Mhm.
with a person, whereas sympathy is like, well, at least this part of your life is okay. It's just trying to like kind of put a silver lining around what you're experiencing. Where empathy is like trying to be there with someone
Mhm.
and just kind of try as best you can, to sit with them in that and connect with them. And so I think that's an extremely important thing when someone is trying to reach you for support about something so important as their literal life.
Yeah, it's important that no you repeat what they you repeat what you repeat back some of the things that they tell you just to show you that you're listening.
Mhm.
Just to show that you're listening, and that'll probably make them want to continue to talk even more.
Mhm.
Um, one of the more difficult things we discussed in Safe Talk was the fact that when you are trying to help somebody preserve their life, preserve to not end their life, but yet they go through it, they go through with it anyway. One of the different and he said this is kind of a tough pill to swallow, but if they make the decision to go through with it, um, you feel a certain sense of guilt come on you, and that's something that he did, and that was something we discussed. And when the trainer said if they make the decision to go through with it, um, one of the things that you have to try to do is you have to try not to feel the burden of what they of their decision to go through who with it. And that to me was a new one. That to me was a new one because some of the people in there, they said that they went through that, they've dealt with situations before. I had a situation um where and Mike, if you're watching, please don't, please don't kill me for this, Mike. But there was a situation where I had a call, person X. This person had called because they were stressed. Okay. They were stressed. And they were stressed. She was talking. And just as I was about to ask questions, her sister took her phone. Her sister took her phone. Sister took the phone, and just as her sister began talking, the words that I heard was, "Oh my God." And then the phone was hung up. And so that's what they meant when they said you can't feel like sort of responsible for their decision to go through who with it. So you can help them as much as you can, but one of the things that they said, but ultimately is their decision. So that was one of the more startling and somber things to deal with, or well to hear. I don't know if you ever knew that. Did
Oh yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
did. I didn't know, because up until they said that, I never knew. I never knew that. When that situation happened, um, it was certainly stunning, sad. As a matter of fact, you just explained to me moments ago the situation you had, right? Yeah, yeah. So, um, that was one of the more, again, startling, somber things about um helping people, trying to help people preserve their life. We got about 2 minutes left. Do you have any final words?
Yeah. I mean, that's something I'll say that, like, as a mental health counselor and as morbid as this is, but one thing we're kind of taught, as we continue to grow in the field is like, prepare for not if something like that might happen, but when something like that might happen, which is really morbid to think of because, of course, you don't ever want to think that someone you're working with, could have that experience. But that's something that they have to prepare us for because it's the field that we work in. And so, yeah, I mean, feeling familiar with that. And again, I think you're right that just trying to build that space to like give support and safety as much as you can to a person is really all we can do. I mean, we can't change anything about the decisions they make or the control that they have over their own life. All you can do is kind of offer what you can, and hopefully that can be enough sometimes, but sometimes it might not be.
Yeah. So I don't want the video to cut off again. So I'll just close every video the same way I do by just holding up this 988 Hope Rock for anybody who may be um struggling. You do matter. You are loved. You matter to a lot of people. I matter to a lot of people. Grace matters to a lot of people. And to everybody watching this, you matter to a lot of people out there. So this was fun, Grace. And I will see you next time.
Next time. Yeah, I will see you then.
All right. Thank you. Yeah.
Bye.
Right.